Welcome to Real Women's Stories.
My dad got kidnapped when I was 8 years old, and that was kind of the end of the good life that I remember.
I am talking about transformation and how we can transform our lives, because sometimes we can be in a little bit of either stuck in a rut or in a dark place. But if we find the strength and if we do some self-care, we can make some changes to our lives and take that step forward.
One day I was just cleaning one of the offices in bank. All I could see is these fancy, shoes on the floor, leather Italian shoes, and women with stilettos, they leave it on the floor, on the offices. Just thought, I want to be working in an office one day. I want somebody to clean my desk for me.
Today's guest is one of the most inspirational young women that I have met so far on this journey with Real Women's Stories. This lady has moved countries from a very, very young age, had a very traumatic experience, or her family did, and they literally had to pack their bags, move continents, and now she's in London, working in the big city, the lights of the big city.
The fact that they moved all the way from a continent to another, willing to start a new life with no money, I just thought I need to make them proud. And I cannot just sit there and wait for things to happen for me. I need to make them happen. I don't want to get emotional, but
This is Real Women's Stories. Today's guest is a really active person on Instagram. She has recreated her life. Her Instagram page is Transform with Laura. And I think that totally explains who she is. I had the pleasure of meeting her through her partner, who kind of said it would be really interesting for me to have a conversation with her, because her journey throughout her life has been pretty traumatic and challenging. So let's get into the episode and let's get speaking to Laura.
So I am actually from South America. I'm from Venezuela. My mom is Colombian, and I actually grew up in Spain.
I really want to understand, your journey from Venezuela to Spain to the UK. That seems a huge amount. And if you don't mind me asking how old you are, because, I can see you're extremely young.
Well, I'm gonna be 30 this year. I'm
Okay.
29. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, it's been a journey.
Could you just take us back to the beginning? Like, give us an idea of where you grew up and what was Laura's life like when she was a kid and in Venezuela?
Essentially, my parents were quite in a good position. My dad had businesses in Venezuela, various businesses, and my mom didn't really have to work too much. So it was a good environment, because I remember my mom always being present and always taking us to school, those things that not many people experience, and I'm very grateful for that. However, our life changed quite drastically, because my dad got kidnapped when I was 8 years old, and that was kind of the end of the good life that I remember. After that incident, my dad wasn't himself. It was quite hard for him to talk to my mom, even talk to us. He was always really sad, and it was a difficult period for us. And essentially, within 6 months that happened, my dad said that he wanted to move to Europe, which my mom was really against it, because we had a good life. And my mom knew that moving to Europe would mean that we wouldn't have that great life anymore. Within 6 months, we moved. The pound, not the pound, the euro was really strong, really, really strong. So essentially, even though my dad had money, we literally, when you converted our currency to euro, we literally had nothing. My parents had a difficult financial situation, so my mom had to work, and in things that she didn't want to do. Like, she started from the very bottom. Like, she had to be cleaning, and my dad had to also do that because obviously, we didn't really have a choice. And it was tough. It was really tough. People have it worse, but once you experience having a good life and then having to go down to the bottom is quite horrible.
How old were you when all of this was going on?
So when my dad got kidnapped, I was like 7.5, and within 6 months we moved. So yeah, I was 8 years old. So I do remember quite a lot, actually.
At what point did you think that you wanted to dream bigger? Was it at that point, or was it a later stage in your life? Because often enough, these things start to build, and what we do is we become quite resilient, don't we? And we kind of go, well, the only way I need to survive, because I'm 8 years old and I'm on my own, is to think I'm going to have this dream, and if I can hang on to this dream, it will get me through this.
When I was a teenager, I just thought I will never stay in this country because I don't know, I just thought I want to go to a big city like New York. I had that in my mind just because it was kind of a way of coping with the fact that we didn't really have much anymore. It was a way for me to kind of think, okay, there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
How did you get from northern Spain to the UK?
So essentially, I have a sister, an older sister. One day, she literally packed her bags and she just said to my parents, I'm moving to London. And just like that, like the day she was like, she packed her bags one day before and she bought the ticket and she moved to London. I quite admire that because she moved with like 300 euros in her pocket. So I think when she already was here for like a year, I came to visit her. I was 18 at this point, and I didn't really know what I was gonna do with my life at this point because obviously I was too young. So I came to London for a visit, only for a week, and I loved it. I thought, what a great place. Like, wow, everyone is so different. I didn't really see that in Spain. So I thought, okay, I really don't know what to do anymore. And I didn't want to stay in Spain. So I spoke to my sister, and my sister said, like, look, if you would like to move here and work, she said, like, you're not gonna come here for a holiday, you have to work. So she said, you're more than welcome. And then within a month I moved to London. So I came to London. My sister already had a job for me lined up for the next day.
What with a job, and what were you doing?
I was a cleaner, actually,
Okay.
cleaning offices in bank. It was an adventure because obviously I was just 20 and, in the big city. And yes, I did work in summers, when I was 16, 17. I did work some summers, but I never had to actually work like 8 hours. So it was, I'm not gonna lie, it was horrible. I hated it. I was thinking, oh my God, what did I do to myself? My friends at the time were messaging me all the time, oh, we're doing this, we are doing that. And all I was doing was working. Everything was within a day that I moved to London. It was literally so overwhelming. Within a week, I enrolled myself in an English school to learn English. So I was waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning, having a shower, having a little breakfast, going to work in the city of London. Obviously, I had to start at 5 a.m. in the morning every single day to clean for 3 hours. And then when I finish work, I will go all the way back to Seven Sisters, go to the school, study, going to the school classes for 2 hours. And then I was working as a waitress from like 12 in the afternoon or 1 o'clock, something like that, until 7, and then going home and sleep and do it all over again.
How did you transition from being a cleaner now to working in a bank?
That's funny. So essentially, I mean, I remember, right, that one day I was just cleaning one of the offices in bank in Finsbury Circus. And I just, all I could see is these fancy, shoes on the floor, leather Italian shoes, and women with stilettos, they leave it on the floor, on the offices. And, all like, I don't know, I just found the officers so nice, and I just thought, I want to be working in an office one day. I want somebody to clean my desk for me. That's the first thought I had within the 6 months that I was in that situation. I don't think a job or a career defines who you are. Not at all. I don't think anybody's better than anybody. But I did think I do have to try and get a job that will make me have a good life at some point. And essentially, I had a little chat with the school, and they said that I have to pay certain amount of money to study with them. But after I study and I pass my qualifications, they could find me some jobs. So I went to 2 interviews. One was in Mayfair. I didn't really like it, and it was to be a junior assistant. And the second one was in the City of London to be a personal assistant as well. I did the interview, and just at the end of it, the manager said, "Oh, I can see that you also speak Portuguese," because I do. I speak Portuguese, Spanish, and English. So I said, "Oh yes, I'm not 100% fluent, but I do speak it." So she said, "Would you mind being interviewed in Portuguese just for like 5 minutes?" I didn't really know what was going on, but I said yes. And she said, "Right, we have a job in onboarding." I didn't know what onboarding meant. She said it's an onboarding analyst job for the broker that I was interviewing. And she said it's 5,000 more a year. I already at this point was sold. So, and she said, "We will train you. So all we need is somebody that speaks Portuguese, and the fact that you also speak Spanish is a plus." And I was checking the documents, translating them, speaking to clients. So it was a good job. However, the senior manager at the time, she saw that I was quite proactive. So I learned quite quickly, if I'm honest. Like within 2 months, I was already opening accounts and speaking to clients and being really proactive. So she kind of said that I was wasted there. So she put me in contact with somebody, and they actually at that point needed a junior compliance analyst. And because I already had 8 months of experience, I knew how to open accounts. I knew what documents I needed to ask for the clients. I knew a little bit about the FCA and all the regulations. I went for the interview. They offered me the interview, and they said, obviously you need to study because you lack all of the legal background. But they said, we are willing to train you, and we're willing to pay for your studies. I was like, okay, amazing.
There are young adults out here today that are in their 20s, and they could have been in the situation that you're in, living in England, living in the UK, living in London. And to me, I don't see that spark and that drive in those young adults today. Can we just go back? You talked to me about finding these women's nice shoes on the floor. Is that part of your makeup, or is there something else that's driven you there? Like, what gave you that resilience, that drive? You seem a very empowered person.
I always wanted to go back to the life that I experienced when I was a child. I mean, as I said, my parents had it all. We had properties. My mom was there all the time, which the kids that I went to school with, they didn't really have that much of a luxury. So I just guess that because of the life that I kind of had the flavor of for the first years of my existence, I just always knew I wanted to go back to that life. I just thought, it's gonna take time, it's gonna be difficult, but if I keep pushing myself, I think i can I can get a really good job. I can get the house, like the dream that the society tells you that is what you should want. And I think, yes, it comes from the fact that I had that when I was a kid, and also from what I saw in London, if I'm honest.
Okay.
um
So
you
you so
know
you so you saw the opportunities there. You
yeah.
experienced it and then you saw the opportunities. But what happened in between? Because you were at the lowest point in your life. Now, I'm sure there are people that are sitting there and literally when you are in a situation where you're at rock bottom, we can either play the victim, right? Or we do what you did. What was it? What was going through your mind at that time? What gave you that strength to say, I'm not gonna sit in this situation?
My parents.
Your parents.
Because I don't want to get emotional, but um, the fact that they moved all the way from a continent to another is like having it all as well. Is just like willing to start a new life with no money, little money. I just thought I need to make them proud, and I cannot sit on my, just sit there and wait for things to happen for me. I need to make them happen, because if my parents, had a good life and they decided to move to Europe, right, to give us a better life, because they, in all honesty, my dad, yes, he had a trauma and he probably still does. And it was a horrible situation, that and unfortunate that happened to him. But the reason we moved to Europe is because my parents kind of saw how Venezuela was going downhill, and they did not want that for their kids. They did not want us to suffer in a place that was going just to be probably full of crime and violence. So they moved because of us. And the reason we stayed in Europe is because Venezuela went completely downhill. Up until now, it's still not a good country. We can't even travel there anymore. It's literally so sad. Like, a lot of people say, like, oh, I'm from this country, I'm from that country, I can't live there, whatever. Yes, but at least you can go on holidays. I cannot go on holidays to my country. It's on the government of UK. If you go to it, it says that you travel on your own, at your own risk. If something happens to you, no one is gonna come and save you. So I can't even go back to my country. So for me, the fact that my parents, stayed here for me and my sister, I own them all. I have to make sure that they are proud of the women we are.
That's beautiful. Honestly, that's very touching and empowering. And I think to have that connection with your parents and respect for your parents as well, that you appreciated, although your dad went through this trauma, because a lot of kids, young adult or children at that point could have gone, look what you've done. You've taken me out of this situation and you've put me into a situation where I don't know anyone. I think you mentioned that you were eating from the food banks at one point because you literally had no money.
Yeah,
And you could have sat there and been angry with them and annoyed with them and frustrated, but you didn't. You turned it around and you sort of went, thank you for taking me out of a dangerous situation, because now I have opportunity and I have a life to build. Because that's what you did. You started building the foundations of your life and pursuing a dream that that you're making happen, and you're creating a version of your life that you want. Yes, because your parents, you want them to feel proud of you, but I guess also because you want to give your family, to be whoever, whenever you get married and have kids, the same life as your parents gave to you when you were first in Venezuela.
that's exactly what I want. Because I'm, a lot of people might disagree, like money is not everything, of course not. But at the same time, a family needs certain lifestyle, right? Like at least a house. You need to give your kids certain basic stuff. And I just don't want my future family to ever have to go through what I went when I was a kid. I don't want them to struggle. I don't want them to see their parents fighting because of money. I don't want them to experience having to go and get food from a food bank. I don't want them to have that. I think it's horrible. And as a kid, you shouldn't know that that's happening. And yes, I just think I want to do as much as I can, as much as is in my power, to give my future children a, a good life.
Now, you must have come across a lot of challenges. You had the language barrier, you had working, the environments. You seem to have created these opportunities for yourself, but there must have been times where you have hit rock bottom. You kind of like started the process, as you say. What advice would you give to people who, when they're suddenly hit a brick wall, or things haven't turned out right, or they've done something wrong and they're going through, because it takes you back to that dark place, doesn't it? You keep going back to that dark place. How do people pick themselves back up again and move themselves on to the next stage?
From my experience, whenever I had something gone terribly wrong for me, and I'm in that dark place and dark negative mindset, I just try to speak with people. I try to do things that make me happy. I try to meditate. I meditate on a daily basis. I try to write my thoughts on a paper and just see where I am and where I want to be, and take the steps to get there.
You've explained you're working in the city for a bank, but your Instagram page says something else. It's transform with by is it with Laura, by Laura?
What, with Laura? Yeah.
Transform with Laura, and with Laura. I'm going to say sorry. It's spelt Laura, but it's pronounced Laura.
Yes, correct. Yes.
And now you also have a new idea, a new business that you're developing. Explain about that and what it's called, and the thought process behind this new business.
I started a company a few months ago, and I actually launched my website 2 months ago. The business is called Snatch, and Snatch is basically a shapewear and waist trainers line for women, as well as Pilates clothing. And it also helps you with your core to keep it straight. It also has benefits for your back posture. If you tend to like slouch a little bit, you just keep it straight. So it has quite a few benefits. For example, after giving birth, it's really beneficial, and actually some doctors recommend it for the core. I actually loved the project research, like researching the market, and speaking to suppliers and designing the logo, designing the packaging. I actually enjoyed it so much. All the products came, I think, in October, and oh my God, that day I was so overwhelmed because it was 500 things that I had to go through doing the inventory, do I have the right sizes? Do I have the right colors? Like putting everything away. It was such a long weekend, but yeah, that's exactly like how I started it. And
Wow. I mean, your story is one of an incredible journey. I think that you are a very, very empowering and inspirational woman. Um, Anyone that's listening to this, I mean, if you can go through the journey that you've been through, there must be some element of magic that somebody can take from this interview and from you, Laura, because we can either sit, can't we can either sit and sit in that dark space, but then nothing's going to change, right? But if we just take that step forward, just make that first step, just try it out. Just see what happens, because nothing's going to be worse than sitting in that darkness where you sat. And I think a lot of people, like I said, it doesn't matter that your story is incredible. But even if our stories don't mean the fact that we've moved countries and we couldn't speak a language, everyone should be able to take some magic from this and some learnings from you, Laura, in the way that you transformed your life. So we can all transform our lives. We can all make those changes in a positive way. It's just looking for the opportunity. So thank you so much for sharing,
Thank
everything.
you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for having me. Thank you.
It's really interesting to hear Laura talk about how she's progressed in her career and the different types of stages that she's gone through, and then she just wants to better herself. I'm trying to grow this podcast, right? I'm trying to, or I am, leaving my 9 to 5, and I'm pursuing my dream. She's just given me so much inspiration. It's like, you don't just have to stop here. You can aim higher. You can aim higher. The level of success you can have and the rewards that you can feel, it's like space, right? It's never ending. It's just, if you choose to take that opportunity to better yourself. And she's just proved you can do it. I mean, moving to different countries, learning different languages, that's so overwhelming to me. But she's just made me, or given me, some more strength to really, really empower myself to kind of reach for my dreams, reach for my aspirations, reach for the big success, the gold in life. Have you been inspired by Laura? Are you inspired by me? The best way for me to kind of reach my dreams and goals is for you guys to follow or subscribe to this podcast. I can't make you do it. You guys, literally, you can just press a button. It's a follow button on your podcast app. If you would do that, it would mean the world to me, and it would help me build this community, build my followers, and help me reach my dreams. And if you do want to get in touch, you can. We've got an email address. It's TheRealStoriesPodcast@gmail.com. If you want to share your story, have you got a transformational story that you want to share with me and the listeners to inspire them and empower them just the way that Laura has? You can get in touch with me. The email address again is TheRealStoriesPodcast@gmail.com. Would absolutely love to hear from you. And if you have been inspired, then you can catch me next time for my midweek episode, where I can unpick some of the gold that Laura has given us during this episode on my midweek episode of Real Women Stories.